live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, sweatier than ever, hotter than hell. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. A little tardy, a little late, but we got a full show for you nonetheless. Steve Pulaski with you in my what feels like 95-degree apartment right now because it is absolutely miserable outside and it's been like that for some time. We are getting late August weather, mid-August weather in the early part of June, signifying a long, hot summer, quote Keith Urban. It is Sleepless with Steve, however. Wow, man, I just spun the wheels there, and I didn't even know what was going to come out there. And lo and behold, a Keith Urban reference. Usually you have to get me like 15 minutes in this show. I'm Steve Pulaski. Got Dominic Guanzon in the blue polo. Joe Viso repping our alumni right there. North Central College in the crimson red, if you will. Yep. I don't know, cardinal red, whatever
it's just
we
cardinal
are.
Red, yeah, like just red.
Yeah, it's not really crimson. Yeah, I'm colorblind, allegedly. Good to be with you guys. We're not going to waste too much time with the intro and stuff, but we will come with you for a full hour show today, however, because we got three sizable topics to talk about. Rob Zombie's making a new movie. It's been rumored for a couple months now, and finally been confirmed by Mr. Zombie himself. Hot off the release of a brand new album just a couple of months ago. He's got a new movie in the works. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. We got The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It review. If you're keeping track, this is the third movie in the Conjuring trilogy and the eighth movie in the universe, I want to say. It's the eighth movie in the universe. Yeah, if you count the three Annabelle movies, three Conjuring movies, and then you have The Nun and The Curse of La Llorona. So
that was the one I was forgetting, was La Llorona.
Yeah, we're going to break all that down. I lost track of this series a long time ago, just an FYI. But we'll start with this. And you know what? It was kind of a blessing in disguise. Our show got a little delayed today because Dominic kind of found a nice ancillary piece of, I guess you could say, I can't even really think of the word. I guess an ancillary document to this story, to accompany this story that I did get to read it. Don't think, Joe, you got a chance to take a look at it. Highly recommend reading it, though. I didn't read the whole thing, but I will read. I'm actually going to read it.
It's long. It's literally like an FTC legal document. So I don't expect you to read it, but there are important bits that we'll go over once you explain the story.
If you're not used to the language, it's like the respondents, Mitch Lowe, referred to as Lowe. Like you can kind of peruse it and get the idea. But it is what I read about maybe 8 or 9 pages of it before the show. Really fascinating read, I must say. God, corporations and CEOs are slime balls. Breaking news.
Oh my God.
But
that College Humor video is like legit.
True.
With the MoviePass CEO.
I know what you're talking about. I know exactly the one you're talking about. But MoviePass back in the news, and of course, as per the last 3 years, if MoviePass has been in the news, it's not good press. But MoviePass apparently, according to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they came out this week. And they revealed Monday that the company engaged in several nefarious, I always love when I get to use that word, practices to prevent customers from seeing movies. MoviePass might be going on 2 years and no longer existing, but dirt is still being thrown on the grave, and in this case, rightfully so. I've never bashed I just want to say this just to start. I've never bashed something so much that was such a godsend to me.
Thank you. Okay?
Yeah. This thing was a great pacifier.
Every time they're in the news for something like they did or just like any heat that they were getting, I'm just like, man, for something I loved so much, I've never had been so disappointed and hated towards it at the same time.
But moving on, though, if you remember MoviePass, it was the subscription service that was around since 2011. But nobody had heard of it. And then it started getting sort of play, and it started getting sort of known when they launched their subscription service to see unlimited movies. It was a subscription service based on going to the movies and seeing movies in the theater. And how it finally got known was when they dropped their prices significantly down to $9.95 a month. For $9.95 a month, you could see unlimited movies so long as you purchased and the movie tickets through the app. And it was unbelievable. They gave you a credit card thing. I still have mine in my drawer over here.
I gotta see if
they
I
got
have mine.
they gave you the MoviePass little debit credit card, whatever you want to call it. Looked like a Visa MasterCard thing. But it was $9.95 a month. Eventually, it was up to $14.95 a month. But for the frequency that I saw movies in the theater, and Joe at the time, my co-host on Sleepless with Steve, not much has changed. It was a godsend to two college kids that were going to the movies so damn prolifically. I was seeing 8 to 10 movies a month, and you got to think, $9.95 is the price of a ticket in a lot of markets. So, the thing would pay for itself in at least 2 trips. Yeah. No more than 2 trips.
Especially for me, who, like, when I joined the show, you were seeing tons of movies. So there would be times, like, we would open up with the movie we saw, both of us. And then, like, it was a 3-hour show back then. And then the next hour was your solo reviews. And then the final hour was, like, news. So I would just sit there for an hour just hearing you review stuff and, like, chime in every now and then. But once MoviePass came out, it was, like... The whole time we talked about every movie.
Yeah, and I'd still I saw so much. I mean, there's so much unbelievable stuff. I think in total, I used to know the exact count. I think in totality with MoviePass in its entire run, I saw, I want to say about 62 movies throughout the entire time.
How the hell did I see
because
more
I
than
was
you?
Was that, maybe I'm lowballing it then. If that was the number, then maybe I'm lowballing it.
I was in the hundreds with it.
Were you in the hundreds?
Yeah.
Okay, I might be thinking, I got to go back and look then. I think I might have wrote it down somewhere. I had to be in the hundreds then.
Get it while the getting's good.
I mean, to be fair, you did move, and maybe you just weren't seeing as many movies during that time.
True.
Where I
got to go back and look.
Yeah, I was still abusing.
I got to go back and look. I don't know why that 62 came to my mind there for something. Might have been something else. Anyway. Maybe number of X-Critic reviews. We don't want to go there, though. But anyway, these nefarious practices that MoviePass engaged in, and it's not really allegedly. Like, the FTC has confirmed they did this. There's no reason
are
to
emails.
throw the word around. Allegedly. There's emails. There's texts. There's a lot of stuff in this report. So here's a few of the things they've done. Or they did while the company was intact. They actively tried to prevent consumers from seeing movies because they were hemorrhaging money. Shocker. But... number one thing that they did, they invalidated users' accounts, claiming it detected fraud related to their accounts. And it would lock up to 75,000 users out of their account. I had that happen to me once, actually. Funnily enough, I went to go see a movie with a friend of mine, and it would not let me buy it, locked me out of my account. This was in June of 2018. I remember that because it was The Incredibles 2. I do remember that.
Why did it lock you out? What was the reason cited?
I'm telling you, in that moment you're like in a haste and you're trying to go see the movie to begin with. I think it had something to do with something like, your account's been locked for security purposes or something. And at that point, I wasn't shocked. Because at this point the company was caving in on itself. Like, there were reports coming out left and right. At the app sometimes wouldn't even load. So, I mean, I'm one of the heavy users. I'm probably one of the 2% they targeted. Me and Joe probably. Yeah. Just how frequently we saw movies. Another act that they did, they purposely launched the ticket verification program, which was a pain in the ass. That thing they launched it with bugs so as to hinder customers from buying tickets to begin with. That thing was a pain in the ass, if you remember that. You had to take a picture of the movie ticket to verify it. I remember half the time what I would do, and this is horrible, but half the time what I would do is I would take the picture of the stub and I would position my middle finger next to the ticket stub, and it would accept it more often than not. So that was just my little act of retribution over here. And then another thing that they did was they set what's called and what is referred to in this FTC report as tripwires that blocked frequent users of the app that prevented them from making a purchase. So it was acting like the app would know, or the service would know, that you were a heavy user, and it wouldn't agree to let your purchase go through.
I think that happened.
This is conspiracy.
I think that happened to me towards the end of its lifetime, because I remember when I was logging on, and this is what just made me ultimately stop using it and switch to A-list. When I started logging on, for some reason the showtimes were just not popping up for me, and they weren't sold out or anything, and I'm just like, all right, well, the service is still in use at these theaters, because I would ask my friend who also had it, and then also showtimes would pop up. I would click on them 10 minutes before or whatever, because they had some stupid rule like that too eventually, where you had to check in 10 minutes before a showtime, or you had to be within a certain range of the theater before you can check in. And I did that, and every single time I did it, the app would purposely. Well, at the time, I didn't think it'd purposely crash, but it would just crash.
I do remember that because I moved out here and I stopped the service shortly after I did because it got to the point it was so buggy. It was so unreliable. Then there was even the time, if you remember this, it would be like a surge pricing sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't referenced. I didn't see referenced in this FTC report, but there was that like Uber surge pricing crap where you would have to pay like $3 on top of it. Like you'd be getting the ticket comped, but it would charge your account $3 or $4 extra dollars to permit to see the movie. And at that point, I was getting aggravated between that and the app and everything.
Well, the worst part was about that too, and then we could finally go into this FTC document. Was when it became time for Mission Impossible and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I remember this is when everybody blew up about it. The surge pricing used to be like $3. When those movies came out, it was 10. So it was like the price of your subscription just to go see it. And it was like, well then, why not just buy the ticket at that point? Like, why am I even use the subscription?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I think, honestly, Ant-Man and the Wasp might have been the last movie I saw with it. Because out here, once I moved, in July of 18, I saw the first Purge and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And those were my first two movies I saw out here. And I think that the Ant-Man and the Wasp was my back-breaking straw with MoviePass.
Mine was
because it was 4th of July, I think. Oh, yours was Venom. You lasted longer than I did. I jumped ship. I said, screw it. And by that point I was making my own money with my job and everything. So at that point it's like, I don't need the headache. But I'll say finally too, MoviePass failed to install. This blew my friggin' mind. This is in the Mashable article that we've been referencing. This blew my mind in this Mashable article. I didn't get to this part in the FTC report. I'm sure it's in there. MoviePass failed to install quote-unquote reasonable security measures to protect users' info. It stored financial info, credit card numbers, and emails in goddamn unencrypted text documents. That is corporate malpractice at the very least. When you have an online commerce website and you're storing shit in a rich text file or something, that's unfathomable.
Hey, Steve. According to point 44 in the FTC case file, respondent MoviePass represented in the relevant part that it, quote, takes information security very seriously and, quote, uses reasonable administrative, technical, physical, and managerial measures to protect consumers. They didn't do any of that. They didn't do any of that at all.
Yeah, I take my lungs seriously. That's why I vape. Like, come on, man. That was... of all this nefarious crap that they've pulled, that had to be the most unbelievable thing. This was backed by Helios and Matheson. This was backed by an enormous
These are the people who brought us Gotti with John Travolta.
Hey, they did bring us American Animals, though. That movie was dope. That movie was dope. Okay, that made my top 10 of the year of 2018. That movie was dope. Okay, but... yeah, somebody needs to make a movie on this whole saga. Somebody needs to make
ripe
a movie
for it. Oh my God, I am so waiting for the movie in this. Hey, Joe. So when the FTC is usually invoked in casual conversation, I usually hear it brought up by like 12-year-olds when they're complaining about a video game and how it didn't turn out so good. So like, I remember when Mass Effect 3 came out and like the ending sucked for that. I'm like, this ending sucks so much. I'm going to file an FTC complaint and we're going to go after you, BioWare. And then it's like, you just hear that shit. Like, say what? Yeah. A Karen will like bring it out and be like, you're a small business. The coffee was cold. I'm going to call the FTC. You'll hear some bullshit about it. But dude, Joe, can you switch to the document? First page right there.
I got you.
United States of America before the Federal Trade Commission in the matter of MoviePass Inc., Helios and Matheson, Mitchell Lowe, Theodore Farnsworth. That is some serious shit. And if you jump to page 6, point 16, both Lowe and Farnsworth were aware of the deceptive nature of the password disruption program, even at the time they were formulating it, and understood its negative effects on consumers. When a government agency so plainly gives you this like charge, you are in deep shit. Because usually they won't throw that shit. Maybe like some hotshot prosecutor will do that. But no, this is like the FT on like a city level, but like this is the FTC, and they're serious about it. So go to point C on in point 16. In response to these concerns, Lowe responded, quote, "Okay, I get it. So let's try this with a small group. Let's say like 2% of our highest volume users." Like, they have the evidence.
Yeah.
It's abounded in text, in emails. Figures that they're not smart enough to put their user data in an encrypted anything. So of course all this stuff is going to leak out.
I can't imagine. Jesus Christ, I bet you Mitchell Lowe's email was still up on his damn computer if they couldn't even encrypt the documents that held your financial information, for Christ's sake. This stuff must not have been that hard to obtain. The FTC is like, we got an easy one, folks.
Honestly, if you're at all interested in this case, but you're not really into like legal documents, who the hell is, right? They're weird people. But this honestly is kind of a fascinating read. And if you're really interested,
it's very
in MoviePass,
accessible.
It's not bad. It's only 13 pages, and it actually breaks it down point by point, with a lot of background and stuff. So I would actually like recommend it. Challenge yourself a little bit to check this stuff out, because this case is just so ridiculous, and it's blatant. Like, they had no idea what they were doing. It was just pure shooting from the hip. It really is that college humor sketch. I'm not joking. It pretty much is that. So,
and what's amazing to me is like, I almost thought that like when they did this $9.95, because I remember like telling my parents and my parents' friends about it, everybody thought it was a joke. And I'm like, I'm going to hop on this and see how long it goes. I want to ride this till the wheels fall off, because for what I do, it's a friggin' bargain, And then it kept going and going. And then it was like, we need more money. So then they linked up with Helios and Matheson. Then they linked up with all these venture capitalists, and they're all just shoveling money like coal on a damn ship to keep this thing going. And like, I keep going back, and I had a long conversation with a buddy from college who had MoviePass too for several months. And I remember we were talking, and I said, you know what? We got to see a bunch of movies for nothing, and a ton of venture capitalists lost their ass. If that is not the American damn dream, I don't know what is. There needs to be a War Dogs crossed with Wolf of Wall Street movie on this whole thing.
Except they don't get to celebrate. They don't get to celebrate Wolf of Wall Street style, because it's just them panicking the whole time about how they're not making money. Yeah, from
with the
day
casino-like ending. With the casino-like ending. Like I could just hear Joe Pesci. And that was the last time street guys like us were ever given anything that effing valuable ever again. Joe, your
like
thoughts
Goodfellas,
on this
where it's like it's like Goodfellas with Joe Pesci. I was like, oh no, and then just boom.
Walks in the room.
I don't got much to say because I didn't get a chance to read the FTC document. I was busy very much with.
You don't have to, but it's just fascinating.
With some career stuff, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me in the least bit from just hearing the bits I've heard. Steve and I, like every week on Sleepless, back on our college radio station 89.1 FM. We always talked about MoviePass like every week practically towards the end of the show during the radio run. It would be like every week there would be like some concern we would have about it, some news that would come out about the CEO, about how like we think that it might be dying soon, about the other like, apps that were soon coming in response to it dying. Like there was the other one, it was Cinema something. It was like you get like 2 or 3 3 tickets.
Yeah.
Cinemia or something.
Yeah,
Cinemia, yeah, something like that. It was an S.
Yeah.
Cinemia, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, and like it was like you pay a certain amount of money, you can get 2 tickets, or 2 tickets and an IMAX ticket, or 3 tickets, and it was really complicated like prices, and it's just like that one didn't last long because they made it complicated, and they had like 20 packages. It's like, well, if you want to see a movie in 3D plus an IMAX movie and 6 movies a month, you can go with this package. But then like AMC responded with A-List, which to me has been the best one. I mean, because it's a theater chain one.
Easily.
So it makes the most sense why it's working the best.
Cinemark had theirs, which made no damn sense.
Oh, that one was the worst one. Like I know MoviePass, like you got this, but like at least MoviePass allowed you to go to different theaters and like allowed you to see a lot of movies a month. Cinemark was 1 movie a month for $8.95 a month. Steve, how much does a ticket at Cinemark cost?
A ticket at Cinemark at the time was for like matinee was $5.50 to $6. It made no goddamn sense.
And
I remember I went on a long with Cinemark Movie Club. I went on a long-winded I don't know what it is now. I have no clue.
It's
but at the time it made
for full
absolutely
price.
no sense.
$7.50 for full price. So it's still less than the $8.95 a month to get one ticket. It was made for concession stands.
I think you think you got concession or something out of it. I remember my buddy was a manager at Cinemark, and he goes, "Dude, we've had a number of people bring it up." He's like, "I don't know what the hell they're thinking with a theater like this." He's like, in the city, because he told me, he's like, in the city, in bigger cities, the prices are way more. He's like, out here, it's way less than that. He's like, he's like, corporate didn't think this through, launching it in every theater.
But yeah, I'm not surprised at any of this. It was always shady from the start, but Steve and I decided to take that leap of faith into it. And as shady as it was, and looking back on it, how risky it was that we could have probably had our credit card information stolen, it was one hell of a ride that I loved every second of.
Your data's already been stolen by like seven other companies that kind of know what they're doing.
I get so many calls about solar panels and roofing things on this phone.
That's why we get robocalls.
It's probably because of this. I wouldn't doubt it. But
you want to go be Steve Pulaski? Go ahead, be my guest. Take a shot. What a great topic. That was a lot of fun to rehash that. I almost forgot completely, Joe, that that was a weekly segment on the show. Yeah. Was talking about MoviePass.
It was the tenet of its season.
Yeah, it was the tenet of Sleepless with Steve during its final season. Yeah.
Yeah, it was obnoxious. There was something every week with that damn thing, and then us having it, we could talk about our own experience.
Yeah,
so it was a really great conversational conduit, to say the least. We shall move forward. Conjuring 3. It's probably what I'm going to call it now, because I'm sick of writing and saying The Conjuring, the devil made me do it. But this movie is the eighth installment in the Conjuring universe, which is been a hell of a ride. It's hard to believe. Don't look now. The first Conjuring is 8 years old. Don't look now. But shockingly, that movie came out in 2013, and what a franchise it has spawned. This is, I will say, of all the Conjuring movies, of all of them, I think this one has the most interesting story of the 3 Conjuring movies. I'm not talking about The Nun. I'm not talking about Annabelle Comes Home. I'm not talking about Annabelle's First Christmas, whatever. I'm talking about the Conjuring movies, the 3. I think this one has maybe the most interesting story because it's based on the famous Devil Made Me Do It case, which went to the Connecticut Superior Court back in 1981. If you don't know about the story of Arne Cheyenne Johnson, I highly recommend looking into it, about the man who was convicted of first-degree manslaughter for the killing of his landlord, and it was the first time in a U.S. court system that a defendant ever pled not guilty by reason of demonic possession. And it's a wild case. If you haven't read it, or at least kind of read the ins and outs of it, it was fascinating for me just to kind of dive into that. But moving on, though, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's in theaters. It's on HBO Max right now. And I will say, to start this off, I like that this is not the haunted house movie of the other Conjuring films, because a lot of these Conjuring movies are kind of confined to a house, and they're kind of confined to things that go bump in the night. This Conjuring actually gets out of the house, so to speak.
Yes.
We're kind of permitted to roam around with Ed and Lorraine Warren, again, valiantly once again played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who continues to be criminally underrated in my opinion. But this movie permits its characters to kind of go outside that realm and actually interact with surroundings, kind of do their own research. It's very much paranormal investigative journalism. That's what I was kind of thinking to myself watching this movie. It is also, without biting off too much, it is also messy. It's also a very messy and kind of bloated movie in a lot of ways. And I'll throw it over to Joe, though, to continue.
No, I completely agree with you. I like the first 2 Conjuring movies a lot, actually. I think it's the only 2 movies of this whole franchise that I really enjoy. I think Annabelle Creation is the best Annabelle movie, but I'm not still crazy about it. I didn't care for The Nun. I didn't care for La Llorona. Or however you pronounce it.
La Llorona.
Thank you. I never took Spanish in high school, so my pronunciation of anything Spanish is horrible. As a person who actually did enjoy the first two Conjuring movies, they definitely are those haunted house movies, but they're done very well. James Wan really brought a cool style to it. He brought really great cinematography to the franchise that I felt at the time when it came to mainstream horror films, there wasn't enough of like effort being put into those movies. And then James Wan came in with The Conjuring, and I felt like he kind of brought this new way to like make mainstream horror movies. And I think like Blumhouse kind of took that approach that you don't have to spend this much money on like a horror film, and all you need to do is really play with sets, costumes, and camera tricks. And like long and behold, we have like a whole studio now, Blumhouse Pictures, that like basically follows that whole template that Wan really used in the first Conjuring film. As much as like I did enjoy that it's not the go and bump in the night like haunted house film, and it is like basically like a buddy cop film where they are trying to solve a paranormal murder. Steve is absolutely right. It's messy, and it sucks that it's messy because yeah, it has the best setup out of all these movies. That opening like act and everything, I was with it. I was like, okay, this actually might be like, this is setting up to be probably the best one, a good closure to this trilogy. And no, it's the weakest in my opinion. It's not bad. Like I wasn't angry about it or anything. But after coming off of The Quiet Place 2, a sequel that did not waste any time, was like straight to the point, hour and 40 minutes. I look at this movie, there is no reason why it had to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I was sitting there and I was like literally like, wow, there's so much you can cut out of this movie. There's not much being said here. And if you were to actually make this tighter, this actually probably would have been a better movie by a mile. Not even just a little bit, by a mile, I think, if you would have cut out a ton, like a large portion of this film. They literally do a side quest in this movie out of nowhere. It's like they go to like a destination in the main quest line of the main plot line, and the guy's just like, I'll help you, but you gotta help me first. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, come on.
Yeah, we got a Skyrim side quest in the middle of the damn movie here, I will say.
I was like, this is like so out of nowhere, and like the result of what happens, like a demon shows up because of it and almost kills one of the characters, and I'm just like, this is like James Wan, I think, did a good job at keeping it like based on a true story. And it's like, okay, I could kind of see this how it is based on a true story. There were so many parts in this one especially. Like 2 kind of pushes it, but this really does. 3 to me is like, there's no way in hell this is based on a true story. I don't care what you tell me. Maybe, yeah, the court case and everything,
Based.
sure. Yeah, the base is very much in quotation marks than ever before, I think.
There was an Ed Warren and a Lorraine Warren.
But like, where like demons are popping up and grabbing people by the ankles and pulling them off of cliffs, or showing up in morgues and chasing them down like a Hulk creature. It's just like, dude, come on, man.
Bro, I was watching this movie and I'm like, damn, is like the twist at the end that they were on LSD the whole time because this was set in the 70s or something, right?
Yeah,
or 81,
early
sorry,
80s.
yeah. But quick before we go to our Zoom sponsored break, yeah, dude, this I'll say this once and once only. I'm not a horror guy, and this is my very first Conjuring movie. I guess I should watch the first one. Going into it, I was actually no knowledge of anything Conjuring at all. I actually did like the setup here. I like that it follows the adventures. Once I watched this movie, I looked up some info. Oh, this whole series follows the adventures of the Warrens and how they, they're paranormal investigators. That actually sounds pretty cool. And it's a period piece. And it's just a lot. That's a perfect like 70s and 80s. That's like prime, prime occult stuff. And seeing it play out, at least in the beginning, it's like, oh, are they setting this up to be like a trial, or this is like giving me some like True Detective vibes? Not fully, but just some of the vibes from it. Like, are they gonna like uncover things? And, like we'll go back and forth to the case as it develops. Nope. It's just once you leave that premise, yeah, it just turns into like them wandering around literally chasing ghosts and demons. And like breaking a couple laws, I'm sure, along the way. I'm like, how did they get away with this?
Because we have God on our side.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, is there going to be like a clever twist where they were just insane the whole time? I don't know. But yeah, it loses its way. Jokes about side quests. Technically, it's part of the main quest. It's like an earlier quest. Anyway, but like all jokes about that aside, it's like, what are they doing here? Like, is this is there is a sense of grounded reality. There are a couple of characters at times that are presenting them with things like, yeah, we have to ground this in reality. This is too crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a detective. We can't just do this, you know? But then they just keep on doing their occult stuff, and the movie assumes it to be true, which you can do. But then when it comes back to the framing narrative of that, yeah, this person is on the hook for murder, and like, how do you resolve that? And it's to me, it was very unsatisfying in terms of like how it wraps that all up, how it treats it. I didn't know how to treat it. Like, is this like an American Hustle thing where it's like, okay, sure, yeah, it's based on reality, but you just kind of let it go after that, which I did wind up doing with this Conjuring movie, but it wasn't self-aware enough where I felt like it knew what it was doing. You know what I'm saying? So in that sense, it wound up being pretty disappointing. And we'll go into some more details after this.
We got to take our Zoom sponsored break really quick. But coming up, I want to say the one aspect to tease what I'll talk about after the break. The one aspect that I think this Conjuring movie did better than the previous two, which is why I'm a little bit probably going to be a little touch kinder to it than maybe you two. Flaws and all, because there are flaws. It did one thing that I really appreciated, and it put it center stage multiple times. Talk about that coming up after the break. You're watching Sleepless with Steve. I'm Steve Pulaski, Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon. Our Zoom-sponsored break will commence. We'll be back in just about a minute or two on Sleepless with Steve. And better than ever after our Zoom-sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve. We're talking about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, also known as The Conjuring 3. I probably should have mentioned in the opening monologue or reviewing this that this is the first one in the series not to be directed by James Wan, at least the first Conjuring movie not to be helmed by James Wan. It's directed by Michael Chavez, who, if you're familiar with the Conjuring universe, he directed The Curse of La Llorona a couple of years ago with Linda Cardellini, who was easily the best part of that movie, the poor woman. That movie was not good, but I will say that I do think Michael Chavez was failed more by the material than his directorial prowess, because I do think he does a pretty good job with this, all things considered.
There was some cool cinematography here. I don't know if that's, not consistent with, I don't know anything about the Conjuring franchise, but just in isolation, this movie actually had some really cool shots that I really appreciated.
They straight up took a shot out of The Exorcist, but I thought it was a cool shot regardless.
Was it the priest?
Yeah, when he first arrives, like at the very beginning.
That was hokey. There's a lot of Exorcist callbacks in here, but that street light lamp thing was especially corny.
Yeah, they also took a shot.
I figured they were just paying dues. I don't know.
They also took a shot from Psycho as well, and the shower scene with the blood coming out of it.
Yeah,
there was a shot like from Psycho. But no, Dom, to answer your question, no, the Conjuring movies in general, and I don't know so much about the spin-offs. I really didn't pay attention because I was mostly bored with those movies. But the first two, at least, yeah, the cinematography in those movies is really good. James Wan, like, there's some he knows how to do cinematography really well. Like, Aquaman is a
Wan's
movie.
a phenomenal director.
Yeah. Aquaman, I don't like it, but it's a beautiful looking movie. I will not deny that.
Yeah, Wan is a very talented director, whether it's a blockbuster or it's a horror movie, because he made Dead Silence, he made Saw, he's made so many horror movies, even the first two Conjuring movies.
Furious 7 or Fast and Furious 7, whatever it was called.
Furious 7, yes, he did, and he did a really good job with that, especially given the circumstances of Paul Walker's death. Wan is a really good director, and he's kind of finagled his way into being a household name, thankfully. But yeah, he didn't show up for this one. Michael Chavez, he's done with The Conjuring, I believe. Wan, he's kind of like.
There's another horror movie coming to HBO Max, directed by him. It's going to be again one of the in theaters and on HBO Max for 31 days. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah, I do know he's coming out with something. But let me say this though about the Conjuring 3, because this is the one thing I really wanted to touch on with this movie, and one of the reasons I really appreciated it. A great deal of this movie revolves around the legacy of the Warrens, because this would prove to be a defining moment for them as supernatural investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. I call them the paranormal power couple because that's really what they are. But they're really given some great screen time here. And some people I know, like the young crowd, I mean, full disclosure, I saw this in a packed theater. This was the fullest theater experience I've had since last year. There was probably 30 people in the theater, 35 or so. It was big on a Friday night. And I ran into two friends there, and that made it even better. But so I don't think this is going to play super well to the teenage crowd who wants to get, you know what I mean, the shit scared out of them and whatnot. But I love that their relationship, and more importantly, their romance, is given time to breathe, because Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, they have been the anchors of this series for so long, and they have been really the dynamic force. And Ed has a health scare early in the movie, so it kind of puts their 30-year relationship into perspective, and that's given a lot of time to brew. We even kind of see their first date, which is really cute. They
are the Conjuring's best weapon that has never been used until this movie, and it sucks that this is the movie that they use it the most in, because I would have loved to see this be used in 2, even that first one, because that would just added so much more to those movies.
I think this gives it a dynamic and dramatic gravitas.
Yeah.
More so than that. And I also want to make this point too, in conjunction with that last one. This movie, even for the Conjuring movies, this movie also felt, especially in the opening exorcism, where it's transferred from David to Arnie. Arnie Johnson is the boyfriend of the young boy David's sister. That's their connection. And the demon is transferred then from David to Arnie, and then eventually he commits that murder. That I really like. There's a lot of this movie, especially when it's focused on the trial, and it's focused on Arnie, and it's focused on getting him out, like exonerating him in so many words, or, getting him acquitted for this whole madness that's gone on. There's a real focus on the human in this, more than the demon, that I liked. And I think it's also in part because it's not set in this haunted house aesthetic like they've kept, or this formula that they've kept since the beginning. There's a real focus on the human aspect of this, and it's no better shown in this movie than the scene when David talks to Arnie about what it feels like to have a demon inside of you and not thinking your own thoughts and feeling your own feelings,
always
and
being
thinking things that you would never do, always feeling cold and everything. I love that. Those are the two aspects of this movie that I think really make it solid. Flaws and all, the romance between Ed and Lorraine and their legacy, on top of the human aspect about demonic possession. I think those two things are definitely handled in this sequel.
When this movie really kind of started wandering around with this with the plot of trying to find the demon to cure Arnie or whatever, which I honestly wasn't that interested in. I fell back on the characters. I fell back on the Warrens, and that I have to echo that it is its strongest point. I just like the idea of, honestly, the three biggest strengths of this movie is cinematography was pretty cool. And the setting is ripe for it. And then also you have just the idea that like the Warrens, it's like the fourth season of True Detective but with like a paranormal twist. I was kind of hoping for this. I was hoping for the wrong movie, but I just like the idea of that. But also, yes, the acting, Wilson and Farmiga. Wilson and Farmiga's acting here is pretty damn good. It carries the movie through, and as you guys said, it apparently is carrying The Conjuring all the way through all 8 installments of it. I don't know, man. Like, get Wilson and Farmiga to just do a True Detective TV show. And
I'm so down.
With a paranormal twist, I'd be cool with that. But yeah, just I guess I'm moving on to closing thoughts here, but just like, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, it's just bogged down horribly so by its lack of, I don't want to say direction, but the plot is, it's like, what are you doing here instead of, because the poster, right? The poster says the demonic case that shocked America.
You don't see this case.
You don't see the case. I'm not asking. No. I'm not asking for it to be what's that?
Courtroom drama.
Yeah, I don't mean it to be like a courtroom drama, right?
I thought we were going to get that early on. I thought that's what this was going to be.
I was stoked for it, which may have been my fault.
Because they get you interested. But they get you interested too, especially the scene when Arnie does commit that murder and you see it through the eyes of him.
Yeah.
You see what he's actually experiencing. That was a downright terrifying sequence.
Not only that, but even like
cool.
even when they go to it was like the attorney or something, and then she's just like, "There's no way we can actually say like."
You know what? It's not my fault. Yeah, this movie was setting me up like for a courtroom drama.
And she's like, "There's no way we can ever bring up the devil in there." And then like, and then Ed Warren's like, "All right, why don't you come to our house real quick?" She's like, "Fine, I will." Next scene, she's scared out of her mind, shaking in that courtroom like she's seen some.
That
shit.
Was good.
That was
she's
a great
just like,
joke.
She's like, "Do you okay? What? How do you plead?"
Not guilty.
You just see her.
She's like, they took me to their sex dungeon of ghosts.
That was a good scene.
Yeah, I will be shown in the 4th Annabelle movie.
Yeah, here you gotta watch The Nun and La Llorona back to back. Oh man, it's like nobody gets into politics. Like watches Fox News for a whole day. Guys, get this. You know?
I gotta say too, going off cinematography. Especially towards the climax, there were some really cool camera tricks where like like there's a scene where Patrick Wilson's talking to the villain of the movie. I won't reveal who it is because I actually thought this was a cool approach too. At the end, it doesn't make much sense, and I was a little bit confused. But the idea of who the villain is, I was like, oh, that actually hasn't been done in these movies. Actually, this is actually a cool idea. And I wish they expanded on it more. But he's having a conversation with this person, and the entire time he's talking to her, like, it's chasing him, it's going ballistic, and he's trying to defend himself, and then it cuts back, and he's about to stab his wife, and it's just like, oh, shit, like, that was actually, like, a really cool transition you guys did there. They do some cool editing tricks, like, to, like, hide stuff like that, but again, it's just, like, the movie, to me, it's way too long for its own good, that, like...
It is.
The moments like that are very, what's the saying I'm looking for here? They're very far in between, few in between. I forgot what it was.
Few and far between.
Thank you. Yeah, that. Like, you don't get enough of it. Where it's just like, again, I feel like, man, if you would just cut out that side plot where they go to the detective, like, you can have them go.
Occultist.
Yeah, and all that stuff. Like, I was just like, man, if we just cut that out and maybe like, if you want to use that runtime, expand on Ed and Lorraine, maybe expand on the case a little bit more, maybe expand on Arnie a lot more too, because I felt like even he kind of gets shafted towards the end. You could have had like, yeah, this isn't the scariest.
He's about to shaft himself.
This isn't like the scariest Conjuring, but it is the most dramatic one and the most character driven one, and I would have appreciated it for that. It's like, okay, you know what? For 2 movies, it's been a haunted house film. For this climax, I'm actually getting a closing with these characters, and actually would have been really nice.
I agree. No, I totally agree there, and it almost starts to feel by the end, or at least by the third act, it starts to feel episodic to a fault. And it starts to like, because it gets us for like a 45 minutes so wrapped up in this devil made me do it case. And then it loses its way. But there's real touches of humanity throughout this thing that I think keep the whole entire experience in perspective, which I did enjoy. And I think it gives a lot of credit and a lot of dramatic power to Wilson and Farmiga, who, like you said, have been the best weapons of the Conjuring universe. And then this movie, I really loved how they flashed back to how those two met. That was cute. Like, that was really touching. I know the crowd for this, like the teenage crowd, is going to, groan and, gripe about that. But I think it does loan some weight to these characters. In total, though, I don't want to say generous. I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars, because the flaws are the flaws in terms of how muddled this thing gets by the end. And I would be lying if I said that by around an hour and a half, my interest in the whole entire thing wasn't waning. 2.5 out of 4 stars for me.
Dom, you can go.
Yeah, 2.5 out of 4 as well. I think I just like the idea of this movie. Once I started learning more about The Conjuring, it's like, yeah, this would be really cool to watch. Maybe not. I don't know. The horror elements of it, the scares, I saw a mile away. So really, it wasn't that bad at all. And this is coming from, I'm not going to say it again, but and it's. I just want to watch True Detective now, to be honest with you. I did shout out to the ending credits those last 2 minutes after the movie has concluded, and you get archived audio of the exorcism, and
that creeped me out.
That was
newspaper
terrifying.
snippets. You see newspaper snippets, you see all that stuff, and it's like, damn, could we do this instead? And that kind of leads back to my point. It's like, as cool as that was, what if that was the movie where you're really exploring the viability of this, or how it feels to be in this, as opposed to, well, maybe that's the wrong term, but as opposed to running around doing some horror movie trope stuff. As Steve mentioned, episodic. As even though I haven't watched the other episodes, I got that feeling from it. At least something that I've seen before, in so many ways. But I don't know. At this point, I think I'm just asking for something different entirely. In terms of my first Conjuring movie, not bad.
Joe, send us home.
Ever since Juan said he was going to go direct, what's it called? Malignant is his next movie that he's coming out, an original horror film. Ever since he announced he was going to do that instead of Conjuring 3, this has always been the one I've been kind of like, I don't know, because it's just like, when he's at the helm, these movies are good, and when he's not, they're pretty bad. Luckily, this isn't pretty bad. This is not as bad as The Nun or Annabelle or I'm not going to try. Forget it.
La Llorona.
It's not as bad as those movies, thank God. It does have some redeeming qualities to it. But the sad part is that it's definitely the weakest of the 3 films. And I hate to say that, because I do really like this franchise. I shouldn't say franchise, but I do really like the first 2 movies. I had a blast with them. I own them both. And they're some of my favorite movies to pop on for people when they come over and tell me I'm too scared to watch the Conjuring movies. And I'm like, well, too bad. We're going to watch them anyway. It was just a little bit of a bummer for me. I was a little disappointed with it. I love what they did with the Warrens, though. I thought it was a fitting conclusion to them. If they do make one more, fine. I would rather actually see, Dom keeps saying True Detective, but I'm so down for an HBO Max limited series where we just take some of the smaller cases that they were doing and just have episodes of that. Just
definitely.
Just a limited series run. 1 season, that's it. That would be awesome. I'll be totally down with that, and you can even explore Adeline Lorraine even further, which I think will be amazing to see. For me, it's 2 stars. 2 stars out of 4. I almost gave it 1. But yeah, if you have HBO Max, I think it's perfect to watch it at home, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, am I the only one that actually ventured out to a theater to see this thing?
I didn't.
Yes, you are. I think
none of my friends wanted to go, and honestly, I was like, I might as well just get this out of the way. And I watched it literally Friday night when it came out.
It wound up being a very nice night for me. I went on a Friday night after work, and then I ran into a former coworker and his wife at the theater. We all sat together and grabbed drinks afterwards. It was actually very nice. It was a very, very very wholesome experience. We actually happened to it once before. We did that 2 years ago. We didn't even plan it. I just ran into it at the theater. We were seeing Charlie's Angels, and I don't want to talk about that crap. But
movie's awful.
But anyway. Yeah, that thing exists. The Kristen Stewart Charlie's Angels movie, yeah, that does exist. That got even more forgotten than the Ghostbusters movie. But we'll march on, though. I don't think this is going to take too long to talk about. I want to touch on it. I selfishly wanted to touch on this because I'm a huge Rob Zombie fan. I'm not so sure about you guys. Joe, I know you've seen a handful of Rob Zombie movies. I know you've seen a few of his works.
Yeah,
and
I've
such.
seen.
And
I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I was gonna say, go for it. What have you seen?
I've seen both his Halloween films. I thought the first one's actually really good. I'm not crazy about the second one. I think Devil's Rejects is pretty good. I thought Lords of Salem was all right, and then the House with 1,000 Corpses I think is good too. Like, I think for a horror movie director, like, some people talk about how extreme he is with like his dialogue in the movies, how like the F word said like in every sentence and everything. And sure, that is true. But I think he has a really cool, like, the best way to put it, honestly, is, like, rock and roll style to horror movies, honestly, that I really appreciate. And it makes sense why it's rock and roll, too.
They're I really like Rob Zombie. His movies are grungy, they're dirty, they're sweaty. You know, like, I love that. He just released a new album, and I will say this, though, before we talk about his next movie. I don't know if you guys ever listen to Rob Zombie's music. I'm not a big metal fan, truthfully, but I love Rob Zombie's music because Rob Zombie's music is littered with, like, horror movie clips, horror movie references. The guy is very smart, and he's very intelligent. The other thing I love about Rob Zombie, I don't know if you guys know this, is how comically long his album titles are. His album titles are outrageous. He just dropped a new one this year. It's pretty good. It's called The Lunar Injection Kool-Aid Eclipse Conspiracy.
Nice.
Before that, 5 years ago, I listened to this one in college. It was the Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser. And then going all the way back to 2010, there was also Hellbilly Deluxe 2, Noble Jackals, Penny Dreadfuls, and the Systematic Dehumanization of Cool. Like, you know, I would love to sit with the guy and be like, pop quiz, name every one of your album titles completely. Like, I swear to God, he just gets a word generator, but they're great. They're really good albums. But moreover, though, his last movie was actually the third movie in the Devil's Rejects series. It's called 3 from Hell, which I shockingly haven't watched yet. I keep forgetting I need to watch that probably for October. But he confirmed his latest movie this week. I am stoked because I don't know what the hell he's going to do with this. But he is adapting The Munsters into a movie. The Munsters ran for 2 seasons back in 1964. It spawned several movies, a sequel series in 1988. I even remember there was a reimagined series for NBC called Mockingbird Lane that was going to be a series on NBC. It was like an hour-long sort of special pilot, whatever you want to call it, but NBC never picked it up. I remember when that aired, that Mockingbird Lane. That was pretty good. That never got picked up, though. But this new Munsters movie is going to star, of course, his wife, Sherry Moon Zombie. I need to find me a woman who loves me like Sherry Moon loves Rob. Like, holy crap. There's something else, them two. Them two have an awesome relationship. But it's going to star her. There's not many other huge people of note. The one cast member, if you saw, that's on this that I can't wait to see, she's 69 years old and she's still going, is Cassandra Peterson, better known as my mouse pad right here, Elvira, over here. You know, my ergonomical mouse pad. It's for carpal. God. It's for carpal tunnel. You know, it's for carpal tunnel. Easy. I always tell people when they point it out when they come to my place, I always say easy on the eyes, easy on the wrists. Anyway, but yeah, she's gonna be in this damn thing too, so I'm pretty stoked for it. So that's pretty awesome. I forget you guys have never been to my place, so you never seen the Elvira mouse pad before. You know. I tell you,
that saying you just said got me good, man.
You know, but anyway, yep. Rob Zombie's doing The Munsters. He's got to make this a horror movie, I figure, because The Munsters was like comedy horror, not too far from the Addams Family. It wasn't as smart as the Addams Family, but it had comedy and horror elements. He's gonna have to. I think he's gonna make this batshit crazy. Is there any way this thing's not R-rated?
If he makes a PG film, as much as it'll most likely be R-rated and everything. I would love to see a PG Rob Zombie movie. I want to know how far he'll take it.
Eli Roth made The House with the Clock on its walls. And regardless of what you think of that, he did make a kids movie.
He did, and honestly, that movie has some really cool visuals, and I think it's because Eli Roth likes making horror films, and he just kind of pushed it for a kids film.
Rob Zombie, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna say this. I don't think this is going out on a limb. He's never not made an R-rated movie. He's never not directed an R-rated movie. So I wonder what he's going to do with this, because the only thing too that he runs the risk of, I don't know how many diehard Munsters fans there are out there. Watch, we're going to get spammed now by Munsters cosplayers and shit.
I think most people are Addams Family people.
I was going to say, when I first heard about this and I saw the picture, I'm like, isn't that just the Addams Family?
It was a sillier, goofier sort of Addams Family thing. Herman Munster, it was never amazing. I guess Rob Zombie loved it, grew up with it, which explains a lot. But I just wonder how he's going to take this, because it's the people who watch the Munsters are our parents' age. Hell, my parents were infants when this show came out. So I'm wondering what the hell this is going to do, because it's going to be on Peacock. I didn't mention that either. So I guess I don't have to worry about box office returns. It's going to be on Peacock. So who knows? We might review it. If Sleepless with Steve is still going in 2022, God willing and the creek don't rise, we will check it out. We'll get Dom to watch another horror movie over here. How about that?
Honestly, I'd be down for it, because Rob Zombie's unique style with the Munsters just sounds interesting to me. If you're going to give that movie to anyone, it's going to be him. I haven't even other than the trailer for Werewolf Women of the SS. Other than that, I'm not really familiar with Rob Zombie's films, but I know his brand, and I actually kind of am familiar with his style based off of his music and stuff, and just all the people he's influenced. So I'm honestly kind of down for it. Okay, Steve, if you had to recommend, don't think about scariness or whatever. If you had to recommend one Rob Zombie film to me, what would it be?
Devil's Rejects.
Yep.
That was in my Halloween ranking. That was in my Halloween ranking too.
I think I
five.
remember that.
Yeah, love the Devil's Rejects. That is one of the most quotable horror films I've ever seen. That is one of the most quotable horror movies I've ever seen.
That's his best movie.
That is his best movie. Seriously. House of a Thousand Corpses is second, I would say. A lot of people say that one's better. I say Devil's Rejects.
Is it free on Vudu?
I think it's streaming somewhere. It might be on Hulu. I'm not sure. I think it's streaming somewhere though. The Devil's Rejects is so good. It's scary though. I will say that it's legitimately terrifying in some aspects. Ken Furry's in it. You might remember him as Keenan and Kel's dad or Keenan's dad in Keenan and Kel.
Keenan's dad, but he was also in Dawn of the Dead, right?
He was in Dawn of the Dead too. Yep. He's in it, and I love it. He's in it. He says one of the best lines in any horror movie ever. There's no use standing around like stone-foot roosters in a fuck farm. He's so great in that movie. Sid Haig, the legend himself, God rest the dead. Sid Haig is in the Devil's Rejects too. He's in all three of those, that trilogy. Bill Moseley, Sherry Moon is in it, Zombie's wife. Devil's Rejects is so good. Then I like his Halloween movies. I like the second one a lot after rewatch. But then I watched it again. The director's cut, Zombie's cut of that movie. I found a new appreciation for it a couple of years ago. Moody Blues, Nights in White Satin plays a big part in that movie too, and it's so good. Definitely a weird one though. Takes some time to get used to, because he does do some revisionist stuff with Michael Myers and telepathic communication. There's some weirdness in that movie, but it is good. I would say the Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, and his Halloween movie. The first one. Because the Halloween movie too, a lot of people didn't like this. I've come to learn, but and Joe remembers this fondly. The first 20 minutes of Halloween show Michael Myers' childhood.
Yeah.
His traumatic childhood. And it's really, it's raw. It's rough. I saw that movie. My uncle took me to that movie in the theater. I was 11 years old when I saw the first Halloween that Zombie did. I was 11 years old, and that movie was effing terrifying as a kid. I've since rewatched it a couple times. I can watch it, but man, my uncle took me to that. I was 11 years old. That thing was traumatizing, especially those opening 20 minutes with his dad, his stepfather, I think. That was horrifying. Joe knows what I'm talking about.
No, the opening to that movie, again, it's something, like, Steve's right. A lot of people do hate that movie, and I understand where they're coming from. A lot of people hate, like, how that opening is. They're like, it's just too, like, silly. It's too extreme. Like, honestly, I found it effective. It creeped me the hell out the first time I watched it.
Because, and you know what, and we'll wrap this up. I don't want to go too much longer, but I will say this, though, because a lot of people took offense, and I didn't realize this until I got older when I was reading online. A lot of people are like, well, it doesn't leave Michael Myers a monster. He's a monster. This gives him, like, a backstory. Like, he's human or whatever. He's not like this fabled monster character. I said that, and I remember, like, even responding online. I'm like, that makes it legitimately more terrifying.
Yeah, it's a human being.
Look at the childhood this kid had. Look at the childhood this kid had, and then he grew up to be this, like that, like further, because that gives it a degree of humanity. He's not this indestructible murderer.
Excuse me, but like we hear stories about kids like, doing something really terrible, whether it be a shooting or killing somebody with like a knife or something. And like sometimes it comes back to what's happening at home with their parents. I'm not saying like they're not like, watching them. No, I'm talking about the abuse they go through. And it's just like, yeah, it made Halloween feel a bit more real in that aspect, that Michael Myers could be something that could happen. Yeah, he's taking the legend of it, of course, and like having like his own like creative liberty with it by making it more grounded. But there was nothing ever wrong with that. It's a reboot for a reason. That's why I hate fans sometimes, man.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that rant, because people need to be told. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at Dahmer. That's what it kind of was. It was kind of like the echo of Jeffrey Dahmer in some ways.
You know what? That's a good comparison. That's the only good comparison to Jeffrey Dahmer I will ever say, but that's a good comparison.
Seriously, I can't wait for the Munsters, though. Hopefully we'll review that when it comes on Peacock. I'll have to give these gents my Peacock login. Cock Plus, as I like to call it. Anyway, that's our show. That is our show today. Man, I'm wilding today, man. I'm making jokes about Peacock. I'm whipping out the Elvira mouse pad over here.
Whipping it out in the same sentence as cock.
Man, I tell you, Lord have mercy. Wait till we get together this weekend. It's about to be a party. Wait till we get together. It's about to be a party. That does it. That's our show tonight, Sleepless with Steve. Man, we made it an hour. Officially an hour. How about that? It's been Sleepless with Steve tonight. We'll be back next week. I'm stalling. What are we reviewing next week? In the Heights. In the Heights.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm like, you're literally seeing it in theaters.
I literally said that earlier. Yes, In the Heights. I'm so scatterbrained at the moment. Yeah, In the Heights. Are you guys seeing it in theaters? You watching it on HBO Max?
I'm seeing this one. I'm seeing this one in theaters. Ain't no way I'm missing out to seeing this in theaters after watching Hamilton at home.
Seriously. I'm looking forward to this, man. Lin-Manuel Miranda, you lived up to the hype after Hamilton, man. Once I saw Hamilton, you lived up to every bit of the hype. And I love it, too, because Corey Hawkins is in this movie, who was in Straight Outta Compton. And I'm so stoked to see him again. So it's a long one, but we're going to make time. We're probably going to carve out a decent section of next week's show to talk about In the Heights. That's going to do it for our show today. I thank these wonderful gentlemen again for being a part of it. Joe Viso, clicking off screen, touching the buttons, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, making this show run as smoothly as it always does. We'll be back next week, and we will try to be better even next week, too. Back and better than ever is what I always say. I'm Steve Pulaski. Joe Viso on the theater screen, repping our alumni, Dominic Guanzon in that trademark blue polo. This has been Sleepless with Steve.